I would be afraid of. Okay, I see they have wood up under it.
You know, I have to walk through here and there's something.
Why?
Huh?
Why?
Why did I have to?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't cross the river. I have to get to the other side.
Probably. Oh yeah, right there. Nice. Whales right out there. Beautiful day today.
The entrance?
Yep.
Nice.
Going into the cave. Gotta get low. Holy crap. All right. How you doing? Good. Nice. Wow.
See the face?
Hmm?
See the face?
Where? Oh. Cool. It is cooler in here. That's the only way in?
Yeah.
Nice. All the roots. It's beautiful. Okay, so tell me about the story about the fire.
Okay. Wait, I'm gonna.
Do your prayer?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Is it bad for me to be recording? Okay, so you really have to watch this. This is water right here, and it's all cloudy where you can't see through it, right? So watch what happens when I walk around this thing. Keep watching the water. And now from this side, you can see everything that's in the water. I can see all the way down to the bottom. But for some reason, the algae or whatever that's in the water, if you're facing out towards the sun, see, everything's going away now.
Yeah, we're the only planet and the ultimate.
Look at that. Weird, huh?
This is the only one that has nothing to do with a volcano. So right away, it's a unique place. There was a giant sand dune 450,000 years ago. And an underground river flowed through it and created a cave, because sand and water makes limestone. So it's a limestone cave, and around the world there's limestone caves every place. But in Hawaii, this is the only one, this size. And there was one giant cave, and then about 7,000 years ago, that top collapsed under its own weight. And that's called a dolene. They call it a sinkhole, but a dolene is the scientific term. And after that, a shallow lake formed out there. And that lake was there until the 1950s.
Wow.
And that was drained in the 1950s. So, because why did they drain that cave? Well, there's a stream here by the cave that you saw, and there's a house on the beach, the Gillen house. And that place is a rental now, but the Gillens used to live there. The stream that's here was closer to the house. Mr. Gillen was the engineer for Grove Farm. They still own everything to this day, but they had a sugarcane plantation here then. Mrs. Gillen complained about the mosquitoes. So Mr. Gillen, being an engineer, he moved the stream away from the house and he drained the cave at that time. So that's how that happened. And now, partially because of that, we get to do all this research here because that water's out of here. And we had archaeologists from 7 different countries here a few months ago finding all this great stuff. This is like a living museum. And that pit that you walk by in the front there with the duckweed on it and the ladders, that's our current research pit. So what we do is we pump the water from that pit over to this one here. And then we go down and come up with mud that's up to 10,000 years old. And we find bones of extinct birds and fish and plants that people didn't know existed because the pH is 7 in there.
Wow.
So there's only, that's neutral, right? 7 pH is neutral. There's only 3 other caves in the whole world that have this neutral pH.
Wow.
4 caves in the whole world have it. And that means that everything is perfectly preserved, down to the pollen. You know how big pollen is, right?
Nice.
So that we have pollen experts coming here to study pollen.
Wow.
One of the archaeologists was here, those 7, was from Australia. And he has a theory there was an ant here before anybody thinks there was ants here. So he took 200 pounds of that mud back to Australia with him to discover the skeleton of this ant, become famous for discovering this ant, right? So that's the kind of place this is. And then when you go down 400 years, you come to a tsunami layer. And that's so clearly defined now that this place has become #1 in the world for tsunami research. And people from all over the world now come here to study tsunamis because everything is preserved perfectly in there.
Nice.
And then everything we plant here is native. We call that rewilding. Well, did you want to buy one of those books?
No, just leave me some money.
Oh, great. We'll just throw it in there. They're great. Thank you. So, yeah, like everything we plant here is native. We call that rewilding because it was all invasive plants here before that. And these palm trees here are Pacharia palms. They're not coconut palms, so they're not a food source. And they were here when the Polynesians got here about 1,000 years ago. The Polynesians brought coconuts with them in their canoes as a food source. But they brought rats with them too. And the rats ate the seeds of these trees. And they went extinct on Kauai. And then we found one in Niihau about 15 years ago. So these trees here are 15 years old. And you see the one on the hill there, that was planted at the same time. That's the same kind of tree. So that's how they normally grow. So these guys are on a constant growth spurt because of the 7 pH in the groundwater. And they're totally juiced on that all the time. So they're just growing like crazy. And we have them growing around the island, but none of them are doing that. Then there was a big banyan tree. You could see a stump of it against the wall there. And that tree was so large that you could climb into the caves up there. And then in 1992, Hurricane Aniki blew that tree down. And Aniki was a big event for Kauai, but for the cave was a turning point for its history when that happened. So I have some pictures that can show you what that tree looked like.
I showed you the traditional house. The thatching is made from this.
Nice.
Before I show you these pictures, because I got to tell you the story about the name of the cave, because this is a good story here. And nobody knew what the name of the cave was. Everybody used to call it the Sinkhole.
Nice.
And then about 15 years ago, somebody's in Honolulu at the Bishop Museum doing research. They find a child's notebook from the 1880s. So the child had an assignment to interview an elder. The elder tells the child that a seer, like a spiritual master, would sit on a platform right here and have a little fire on his platform. And you come in with a question and a handful of leaves, and you throw the leaves on the fire, and then the smoke would blow up and around, and he'd read the smoke and give you an answer to your question. So Makawahi means eye of the smoke,
Nice.
which is just a great name for the cave. And this is the eye of the smoke right here, this big hole. And we only know it from the child's notebook. So when the 3rd graders come in, I say, kids, you got to do your homework, because this girl did her homework in 1880, and it's the only way we know the name of the cave.
Nice.
Yeah, come on over here and I'll show you a picture of this banyan tree. Hey guys, hey, we started a tour over here, and if you want to join in, you can, but if you want to stick around and get the whole thing from the beginning, I'll do that for you also. Okay. So anyhow, I was showing you about this banyan tree here that